Anyway, welcome to Hoosier Prairie. Has anybody been here before besides Paul? A few of you folks have. On other hikes or just on your own?
Hike with Boy Scouts.
And back?
I came with the Michigan Botanical Club.
Okay. Good enough. I gave you a handout, which is kind of our informational sheet about Hoosier Prairie. It's not totally up to date, which is good news. We actually own more acreage than is on that little handout for you. There's also a map for you. Since you came from that direction, you basically drove a mile through the middle of Hoosier Prairie. It's a mile from that stoplight to about the railroad tracks. So you drove right about through the heart of the original part of Hoosier Prairie. It actually extends a mile east and west, and north and south. It's probably a mile and a half in distance now. So we cover about 690 acres, which is a little bit over a square mile. If you look on your map on the back, it gives you an idea of what it's like in the acreage that's out there. Acreage is in different blocks. Perhaps a better way to look at it is to look at this particular map. We happen to be standing right there in our parking lot. Everything outlined in red is what the state or the National Lakeshore currently owns. And we're not done buying stuff yet. There are some parcels we would like to acquire yet. But basically we're in a race now to acquire the remaining open ground as quickly as we can. Because if you go that way, you will see nice fancy strip malls. 20 years ago, those weren't there. We have subdivision up here now. We have a subdivision down in here. We were almost going to have a subdivision down in here, but that got shortchanged. So you can see how much we're getting kind of boxed in here at Hoosier Prairie. And if we get everything purchased that we want to, we'll be close to 800 acres in size. Actually, no, we'll be more than that. We'll be between 800 and 900 acres in size. So, just hang on to that point here. That gives you a little bit of idea of what it's like. Hoosier Prairie is a mixture of basically prairie, oak savanna, and marsh. About half of this property is wet, which a week ago was a good thing because it just poured down rain here. And you've been wet today, you've seen that, probably seen the flooding, heard about the flooding, roads closed, all that kind of good stuff. The only thing that happened here is the water came up and people got wet feet walking around out here, but there was no real flooding or any problems like that out here. Where's Paul? Did you talk about geology today and beach edges?
Well, a little bit of...
I hear a yes and a no.
a little bit of...
Paul, did you talk geology today with me at all?
Just a little bit about dune and swale and the lake plain, but not a lot. So
basically what you have here is we are between two of the old beach ridges from Lake Michigan, and whatever the other names were for the lake as it receded. The Glenwood is over where US 30 is, a couple of miles south of us, and then we're in this kind of flat lake plain in here. And the next ridge is Ridge Road, which you passed over to get here. So you're in between two of the old beach ridges from Lake Michigan. Where you see the oak trees, that's typically where our sandier soils are, our uplands. If you see marsh or these open areas, these tend to be a little bit more organic soils and that kind of thing. But the thing to correlate with the geology is where the oak trees are where some of these beach spits were. When the lake receded, it left sand. Now, it's not the dune and swale, the washboard effect that you were seeing closer to the lake, but it's still beach spits associated with the lake levels declining throughout the year. So that's a little bit of that. So our soils here are basically sands in the uplands. In the lower areas, you get some organic. You dig down way deep under here, you get lenses of clay and sand intermixed. If you go way down deep here, it's 100 plus feet to bedrock. That's how much alluvial material has been built up on this place. It's pretty neat. Topography-wise, it's pretty flat. As you saw, you drove in here. There's no dunes. There's nothing like that. However, we have a lot of micro relief out here. The total relief is about 10 feet, vertical feet in a mile. So you get all these little areas where you go from a marsh to an oak upland in a manner of 20 feet horizontally, but you go up about 2 feet vertically. And so you get all this microclimate, and we have just a wealth of plants that live on this property, inhabited. To give you a perspective, it says in there 560 plants, something like that. Yeah. The whole state of Indiana has between 2,000 and 2,500 plus minus vascular plant species. So just on this property, we have 20 to 25% of all the vascular plant species in the state of Indiana. Just on this 1 square mile here, just to give you an idea of the diversity of the area. There's been about 400 bird species that have been observed in the state of Indiana. We've observed over 125 bird species on this property. So again, you're talking 25% of the bird life of the whole state has been observed on this particular property. We have dozens of butterflies and moths, literally hundreds if not thousands of insect species out here. Dozens of mammal species, including the ubiquitous white-tailed deer and the coyote and all those other things, plus the little voles and that kind of stuff. So it's a very rich botanical property and a very rich natural resource type property that's out here. And it's set in this urban setting now. It's never going to get out of this urban setting. It's getting locked more and more here. We have to talk over the rush hour traffic that's on Main Street right now. Paul, what else would you like me to hit?
How far south did the original glacial lake extend?
About to that southernmost beach ridge, which is a couple of miles from here. Because once you get south of that beach ridge, you get in the Valparaiso Moraine, which wraps around the Chicago area as well. And it certainly didn't go up to Moraine, so the old beach is not that far away from this area on this one. How many of you are actually land managers, like myself, try and take care of properties? You can relate a little bit to all the different properties or problems that we have with people in an urban situation like this. We regularly burn this property, but to make it more interesting for us, we have electrical poles, we have railroads, we have houses, we have subdivisions, and if you look through that white, through the trees there, you see some white tanks back there. That's a crude oil storage facility that we get to burn right next to. So we have all kinds of interesting things to deal with when we burn on this property.
There's also natural gas too.
So all these are...
These are all crude oil right here. These are mostly gone. It gets more interesting down here because we get into gas and other more volatile products. And right under this facility is a huge underground natural gas storage facility. That would make a really good boom if we ever have a problem here. So, but it makes it very complicated to burn on this property. And to even make it more complicated, I have to work with 3 municipal governments. There's 3 towns that cover this property, so I have to make 3 phone calls for one subject to all the different towns that are out here. The towns are very cooperative, though. They really help us out burning out here. So, any here with an industrial bent, industrial background, work for industry, anything like that? The guy with the camera. Okay. I do have to say that Enbridge Energy over there has been very cooperative with the state in helping us manage this property. We work cooperatively back and forth with each other. Most of the crude oil from that facility goes up to BP refinery up in Whiting. I don't know if Paul discussed that at all today or not, but that big refinery up there gets most of its crude oil out of that facility, which means it's actually running underneath Hoosier Prairie in certain spots, which is another nightmare of mine. If the pipes ever rupture, we're just going to have crude oil everywhere out here.
What's the groundwater? What direction?
The groundwater is that way. So it would come from that facility and go right through Hoosier Prairie. So, and the groundwater can be very high. Right now, where we're going to walk will be dry. Anybody have any quick questions, comments?
Did you mention the lakeshore and all that? Did you talk about the lakeshore and their ownership? And
No. Is she here, by the way?
She didn't come.
She didn't come. Good point. This Hoosier Prairie has been a cooperative effort between the state, federal government, and the Nature Conservancy.